Mango Thunder Slice, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is Riot America Part 5, because, well, the the hits just keep on coming, and, we're progressing farther and farther into Wonderland, right? So the Minneapolis Police Department has been voted to be disbanded and defunded by the city council. I guess 9 out of, 13 members. The mayor was against it and got basically shamed down the street. And, so basically, Minneapolis has decided that, George Floyd's murder was basically the straw that broke the camel's back. And now there's no room for, improving it. There's no avenues for improvement, right? Like maybe, addressing the police union, and the unfireability of, terrible employees, the same as any other union, really. No, there's no ways to, examine maybe some aspects of the drug war, maybe, just look at how we could fix the problem. No, we need to disband it, and that's going to make the problem a lot better, right? Yes, the Ilhan Omar, who I believe is a Minnesota rep, has basically said that this is a great step in the direction of making America like her homeland, Somalia, a war-torn wasteland and all-around shithole, to use the Trump manner of speech. But, it's true. Somalia is a total shithole. There's no chance. I mean, even in some of the more civilized, African countries, China, again, as we've noted, is building, these economic centers and trying to develop Africa, and it's basically got to be like an armored fortress, because it's essentially outside those gates, people are getting mugged, stabbed, raped, shot, It's the exact same dynamic the world over. And again, it's so just silly and ironic that the blue team, as cosmopolitan as they fancy themselves, still have no idea how the world works and how people around the world actually think. They are so ensconced in their little New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, cultural Marxism, academic bubble, that they can't even see plain as day truths. Black and white, right? Something as plain as black and white can't be seen. And, one example of that is just, the absurdity of their own programs is one thing, but now they're at the point where they're so brainwashed and so believing of their own lies that they can't even see how their own programs they're actually canceling each other out at this point, right? They thought that maybe adding the racism to the pandemic shtick and that whole program would make it stronger. It actually just completely canceled them both out, right? 1,200 medical professionals, quote unquote professionals, basically signed a letter saying that racism is a bigger health problem than the coronavirus, and so the only reason that you can go outside and gather in groups of more than 10 is to quote unquote protest, and because racism, right? And wow, yes, that really speaks to their power and knowledge and authority, right? That they could make such an educated statement, and so many of them would sign on to it. It is absolutely, they are shooting themselves in the nuts right now. People trust their doctors. People still have that program. It is very strong, but people aren't brain dead. The average person is not brain dead like the Hollywood liberal. They actually have common sense in a lot of ways, and that's why the program is so necessary, because you have to overturn that common sense and get them to unsee what they can plainly see with their own eyes. And because it's just great. Over the weekend, we were at the farmer's market, and I didn't see any masks, maybe a few masks, basically, but we're talking about going from 60-70% down to 10-15%, which is great, because the masks don't actually protect from anything. The coronavirus was never an actual problem. The only reason why we've had the deaths that we've had so far is because, mainly because, Governor Cuomo sent a bunch of the, COVID patients into nursing homes, which is where half the deaths have been, right? All the deaths have been elderly people with comorbidities. There has been virtually no meaningful, statistical death rate for people under 18, for young people, especially, not even old, even the majority of old people still survive. And of course, it's not like this is playing roulette. There's causality here. It's biological, causality and materialism, but it's the life force, right? You keep yourself vital and alive and you will be able to weather the storm. The body is designed to eliminate, to contain, to address, contain, and eliminate pathogens from the day you're born. And the strongest thing you can ever do for your immunity is have been born to a mother who actually breastfed you. Ideally you were born vaginally, the normal way, because you're actually inoculated with probiotics on your skin. It's kind of crazy to think about, but everything in the universe is perfectly designed and perfectly planned and perfectly balanced. It is all the grand equilibrium of the Creator. And, we've gotten in such a, meaningless, rudderless, materialist worldview over the last few hundred years with, starting with Descartes and just running down from there, is that, the body's just a physical machine, that God doesn't exist, the spirit doesn't exist, life force, it doesn't exist, all a bunch of woo-woo nonsense. It is all just particles, random particles just bumping into each other, and explosions, that's it. And gravity, which is only there because mass, right? And they pretend like this is an educated and intelligent worldview. It is absolutely a troglodyte, stunted, half-wit, basically crayon-level understanding of the world that puts on a lab coat and wants everyone to worship it, right? Like the priests of old. Actually, far more ridiculous than the priests of old. At least the priests of old could invoke the gods. You can't invoke materialism. All it ends is in this relativistic, moral worldview, again, where anti-racism is the fundamental highest truth. Because there's no higher guiding principle. We're not going anywhere. We're all just designed to, and geared to, devolve into entropy. And so, the best thing we can do is forcibly increase the material prosperity of people, through socialism, right? Because fuck their souls, fuck their spirits, fuck their lives and wants and desires, because we know what's best, because they're just particles, and we know what particles are, right? Again, this is the absolutely insane worldview of the average leftist, not even the people who are at the controlling point. And again, why there's a lot of conspiracy stuff we could talk about with George Floyd, just like any of the other pivotal events that have seemed to define our culture, from 9/11 and, but too many to name. But, we could focus on a conspiracy side, and it's all legitimate. It looks like there's some insanely shady stuff about, the George Floyd incident and very strange coincidences, which maybe we'll talk about later. But ultimately, the human interaction and this, great conflict among people between the brainwashed and the free-minded people, it is very real. And even if the controllers are controlling us, the fight is still real. As long as people are engaged, this is the domain we have to engage with. Pointing out that something is a conspiracy doesn't eliminate that very real rage. And the only reason that event was able to trigger such a response is because those existing simmering cultural divisions already existed. And so they were triggered by this event. And because people were able to be triggered, they were triggered by these, problem, reaction, solution, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, Hegelian dialectic. Again, they are a one-trick pony, but they don't need any other trick as long as this one trick works every time. And that's really the crux of my message today, is that it's not working, right? The older programmers, right? The old, early 20th century and these supremely evil, when people talk about the evil white man, these were the evil white men. And of course, most of them weren't, just white, but of a particular subgroup within pale-skinned people. But we'll leave that for another video. But, we're talking about, again, Bernays and, the people who created the Federal Reserve and these very, very old elite families, right? They were pretty savvy at controlling people because they were actually ruthless and mentally pretty smart and acute. They were the smartest in society. This was back when university education actually meant something. They could basically dominate the plebs because they were that much more intelligent in them and knowledgeable and thus powerful, right? But here in the modern world today, that imbalance doesn't exist in the same way. A person who has a diamond mind of enlightenment can access the internet and find everything they need to unravel the entire system. And they try and keep us down statistically as a mass, through the fluoridation and the vaccination and the food, the toxic food and the poisoned water and the poisoned air and the media that's just pure bullshit, just indoctrinating people with, cultural standards that are totally foreign and unnatural, and the academia, where the academic setting where it's just the same thing, in a more structured basis. It's all designed to work on the aggregate, but there's always the individual. It's like the Matrix, right? The one is the balance to the program. They can keep most of the people controlled most of the time, and they can get it to a very high percentage, but they have to give people hope, and there has to be that hope of a savior and a chance of a redeemer. And so in the physical sense, they made a very good point there metaphysically, is that you cannot control the individual. You cannot control choice, right? Why do you persist, Mr. Anderson? Why, in the face of all this? I have taken everything. The world is mine. Why do you persist? To which Neo responds, because I choose to. And that is really, the absolute fulcrum, the diamond mind of enlightenment, how you cannot be controlled as long as you resolve to be sovereign and a fractal resonator of the creator of the universe. And so that is where we're at. And even if we're only a smaller percentage of the population, we absolutely still have that power to veto the entire material program as long as we are connected to the creator. And so that's something that, is the underlying basis of, all good religion. They may not even tell it to you in those exact terms, but, read the Bible and it's in there, right? It's all in sort of allegorical speech, but, there's a reason that, the book is still around and people are still reading it, because it gives them power, unlike the media program that saps them and, just turns their minds to mush, right? There are the spiritual texts and the ancient knowledge of this planet is what, galvanizes the human soul and makes it, unsuperable, unconquerable. And that's what it said there, one person who I was talking to recently, the person who I had as a debate partner on the channel a few, months back, Joe Stewart, basically said, people have got to actually see communism and socialism, before they realize that, they don't want it. The ironic thing is that Joe still argues for socialism, but he still acknowledges the craziness of most of the socialists. And, that's essentially what Minneapolis is going to give us. They're going to give us a window into the transformative public safety agencies that will replace the police and show us exactly what a train wreck it's going to be. Because, again, civilization is only a worthwhile topic and endeavor as long as we're talking about moral actors who have a shared, at least, value system, if not a shared ancestry. If they have neither, then there's no point in even discussing a civilization. It can only be totalitarian by definition, because otherwise it's a state of war, and you have to declare, order at the barrel of a gun by force in order to, make that happen. And so, transformative policing, again, in an actual peaceful community, I might support something like that and, see what that community and that civilization could create. But, when it's, again, already people from Somalia, where it's just, people running around with, barefoot with AKs and, rapes and murders on a daily basis, no order to be spoken of, no peace, no economic prosperity, because how can you even develop a business when people are getting shot outside the front? It's just the fact that the elites think people can't see this, and I balk at the idea that they are even described as the elites at this point. Regardless of how much money they have, they are so inbred and stupid and self-ensconced at this point that they can't even see that their own program is dissolving because they're pushing it too hard, and they really think that they can just twist people's minds into a pretzel with no consequence. Right? People, again, it's absolutely great in a sense, because now the pandemic lockdown has been exposed as a fraud, because the same medical authorities that were chastising us and saying we're killing grandma by going outside without a mask, those same people are now saying it's okay to go outside and be in giant crowds because of racism, and that's a bigger public health. It's like we locked down civilization. We shut down our country over this pandemic, which now is turning out to be nothing greater than, basically above average flu season. And it was only that high again because of democratic policies putting sick people in elderly care homes. But And here we are, and they say, okay, go outside and riot and burn down buildings because it's in the name of public safety. And that's when the average person loses it and says, okay, bud. Okay, bud. Yeah, you've basically taken my job. You've basically, the range of negative effects from this lockdown is so wide and deep, and it's, again, the people are out there, rioting and throwing, bricks through these windows, these little white commie Antifa. I bet most of them are receiving the pandemic unemployment insurance. They're literally getting paid by Uncle Sam to be out there and be a degenerate piece of shit. And so the absurdity, again, the mitosis of worlds accelerates. It happened gradually and then suddenly, as Mark Twain said, is, because the program, the more that they can control the majority of variables, that, they can focus outsized force on the one variable that is non-compliant. But the more that the entire board starts to lose balance and they control, a small percentage of the variables, there's very few avenues of response and control they have left. And this is why the black pills need to just take a chill pill, smoke a joint, and realize that there's a longer timeline than, your myopic view on the internet all day can contain. And you need to step back and realize that these things have a way of dealing with themselves, and that's why ultimately I believe in a creator, because this universe is not chaos. It is perfect order masquerading as chaos. It is a great dance that almost seems to fall apart at times, but then magically comes back together. And we are a part of that. We're not supposed to sit back and be popcorn eaters, but sometimes that's the response. Just let the piranhas eat each other at a certain point. The multi-culti delusion is self-contradictory at its fundamental core foundation, and it is irreconcilable. And so we just have to stand in truth and point and laugh, and it will collapse. But the main important thing to realize is that they tried to push the medical fascism and the race thing at the same time, and they've canceled each other out. And so that is glorious. And so at least up where we live, it's very clear that, there's people, again, who are brainwashed, and there's nothing to be said or done about them. Let them go down with the Titanic. I don't care at this point. But the people who are free and who are able to see beauty in nature and God in this world and see, the absolute reason for maintaining this civilization and helping fix the problems that it still has, right? Those people are continuing in glory and supreme faith that, everything's going to be all right. Because at a certain point, again, we're still here, aren't we? This planet has experienced so many crazier things than we're experiencing right now, as crazy as this is, and we're still here. And we're still going to be here tomorrow. And I'm looking to talk to and engage with the people who are prepared to build that new world. Again, the time for raging against the machine is long since past. The time for actually building the new world is right at hand, brothers. In fact, you should have already started by now. You should already be several years' work, into the great work. And, that's what I am happy to say. I am in the thick of it, and we are building that new world every single day. And most of all, in my two daughters, who will go on to transform the world. And as smart as Mango thinks he is, his daughters and his progeny are going to totally lap him and eclipse him. And that's going to be a glorious day to which I will happily look forward. And so that's my video today. Hope you guys are having a good one. I guess final point about the Minneapolis Police Department. They said they've got a veto-proof majority to get rid of and defund the police. Well, it just goes to show how stupid they are. They don't even understand their city and how it works, because written into the Minneapolis City Charter, it takes a unanimous vote, including the mayor, to actually disband the police, because in the charter they're supposed to have a certain number of police officers per population, right? The charter was written back when America still believed in logic, or at least Minneapolis still believed in logic. And but here we are. We get to have a live petri dish showing us just basically what Somalian socialism will do to an American city, right? Even though they can't get rid of the police force just yet, they will basically try and take away all discretionary funding and they, if hypothetically if they get enough, if they can amend to the city charter, they can get rid of it. But by then we should have our example in clear view, and the rest of the country and the electorate should be taking note. And again, for all his faults, Donald Trump is about to absolutely wall up the left like hasn't been seen since Reagan and what was it, 1984? I forget if it was the first one or the second one, but basically NT took 49 states. And California, as commie as it is, there's an absolute insurrection here. People are not having it. I'm not having it. Where once we were just, the silent minority and, just taking it in a stride and knowing, hey, it's California, and trying to do our best because it's so goddamn beautiful out here. Now people are not having it, right? And the average person is waking up and saying, yeah, okay, these commies and Democrats and liberals, I don't think they really actually know what they're talking about anymore. We just locked down our society, and now they're saying it's okay to go out and riot because racism. All right, when more black men were killed in America last year by constipation than by being shot while unarmed by the police. And, it's just insane. You got to just point and laugh. Stay protected. It's not funny if you're not safe, right? And so stay safe. Stay, prepared. Keep your eyes open, but have no fear. Just point and laugh, because we are going to make it through this, and they are not going to make it through this. At least not totally sane. Ideally, we can save some of our friends and family, but again, I've made my peace with God and them at this point. We all go our separate paths in life, and I'm having a great time on mine. So anyway, you guys have a good one. I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers. Peace.
Ah.